Hello, it's Phil from Inspiration Marine. We're here on day one of the Southampton Boat Show 2024, and I want to take the time to show you around the inside of the new Hanse 360. It is a big 36 footer. When I say 36 footer, just over 37 overall including the bowsprit. It's 34'9" on the hull, so it's not 36 foot of hull, but it's somewhere between the two, which is where the name comes from. It's 4 meters wide, which is the same width as the Hanse 400 of about 2007 vintage. So they're getting wider, but I think you know that if you walk around a boat show, you can see everything's getting a bit wider, which means you get loads more accommodation, and it fits on a berth which is shorter than it might do for the same kind of volume that you would be used to 15 years ago. So that's got to be a good thing. There's a bunch of permutations in terms of the layout, cabin configurations, whether you have one heads or two heads, how the saloon works, especially on the starboard side, because there's 3 different variations there. So we're going to talk through as much of that as we can, the various different options that you can choose when you're speccing your boat, and hopefully it'll give you a good impression of how it all works and what your choices are. So I'm going to unclip you from here and let's have a look around. So we'll start up front. So the big thing that's really different on the 360 from pretty much any other boat of this size category that I've been on is you get a bed that you sleep the right way round, and I don't mean just a slightly wider bit at the front end. It's fully 2 pillows wide up there. It's a 2 meter long bed. Naturally, when you try and get this kind of bed, that orientation into a 36 footer, you give something up. So standing space wise, I mean there's a size 9, so you've got a couple of foot of standing space, which is pretty good, but you haven't got masses of space before the bed. Having said that, I'm stood here pretty comfortably. On the port side, you've got a decent hanging wardrobe. Actually, it's a really good height, really good depth. Excuse the brochures and things. 2 decent shelves up on either side, a couple of reading lights at the front end. Both of those have got USB sockets in them, so you can charge your phones and whatever else and stick them up on the shelves. And they're also switchable between white and red, and therefore you've got night lights if you need to. The water tank's under here. You've got a couple of power sockets either side, and then behind the door on the starboard side you have another cupboard, and this one's got shelves, so you've got a cupboard with shelves there, and you also have a drawer underneath the bed, which is about a foot deep and a foot wide, so decent sized drawer under the bed as well. Really impressive cabin, 3 ventilation, so opening hatch there, big opening hatch above the bed, and another one there. So the other configuration available in this space is to put a second heads in there, and if you look up in the headliner, you can follow that groove around. That's where the bulkhead goes for the second heads. Now, whether you can see it or not on here, that cuts across this bed, and therefore the bed orientation changes about 30 degrees to port, so it rotates that way, follows the line of that bulkhead groove there. So you come into the room, you've got the door here on the left hand side into the heads, and then this bed is then rotated and you climb into the bed, and you still sleep with your head forward, but it does fill that space. You lose a bit of floor space down here, and of course you lose that port side wardrobe. So it's nice to have the choice of a second heads. I have to say I rather like this one with a great big island bed and the feeling of a reasonable amount of space when you get into the cabin there. Just tracking back into the saloon, I mean, as I said before, the boat's 4 meters wide. You get a really good space. It's they've done a fab job of making this whole space feel nice and open. You've got big hull windows there, so SATs down there at eye level, down on both sides, and the trim level is really nice as well. You've got upholstered trim in here with a bit of padding to it. The same in the centre line of the head, and of course these LED strip lights in here give a really nice ambience. Cupboards down both sides, another set of cupboards down on the starboard side. On the starboard side here you have a choice. So the standard layout, which they call B1, is that bench extending all the way to the end. So if you imagine that sofa end with the arm all the way down to this end, so you get that. The instruments are still in the same place, so you've got your VHF and your remote that goes up into the cockpit and your heating control and things like that. They stay the same, but the sofa comes all the way to the end. This is B2, where you get the chart table with the ability to stick your legs underneath it and face backwards. This is filled with Boat Show gubbins, but it's a nice chart storage area to put all your charting gear. Not really big enough for a chart. You could probably get a folio in there, but the fact that you've got somewhere to sit and do a bit of route planning is nice. The other option is to change this into a full furniture block. So the sofa is about the same length, but you fill in underneath where your legs might go, and that gives you an opportunity to put another fridge in there or just more storage space. So either full length bench, chart table option you can see here, or fill that in as a furniture block and have a fridge or storage area in there. The port side seating remains the same regardless of the option you choose, but the table changes. So because we wanted to have the ability to turn this side into a double berth conversion in the saloon, you then have to choose a slightly different table. Now this table means that this leaf here folds down very much like this one on the right hand side. That then frees up that space, and the front of that seat comes out, and there's a cushion that goes on there to turn it into a double. What this table also does is, if I can just pull it up, is allows that leaf to come up, and then you're left with the ability for a couple of people to sit on that side at the table, and arguably 3 or 4 on the port side, all sat around the table. You then access the space in the table with this drawer, which has got some nice bottle storage in it, and a little bit of shallow storage for bits and bobs in there as well. So that works out really well. The standard table doesn't have this leaf on the starboard side, and this top is all one piece which is fixed and therefore doesn't fold down. Hence you have to order the folding table if you want to have that converting into a double. Again, the reading lights have got USB sockets in them. That one's actually doing it, and you tap the end to turn it off, tap it back and you get red, and then you toggle back to white, which works out really nicely. These cupboard doors are lovely. There's a fire extinguisher. Nice solid oak fiddle rail in there. Metal catches, so they're not plastic that's going to get brittle and frail over time. And yeah, really nice storage, as good as you could expect anyway, that's for sure. As with all the other 0 Series Hanse models, you've got great big opening windows on either side, to either side of the saloon, so you can open those up, and you may just be able to see it, but the top edge of this window then goes under the eyebrow of the deck, so you can actually have these open when it's raining, and as long as it isn't bouncing off the deck and in, the ventilation is genuinely unrivaled. You'd see a lot of boats where they're just fixed windows, which is great, but a lot of the time you want the boat to be able to breathe as well. And you've got a ceiling hatch there, and then even when you get back into the galley, this is probably a better demonstration of what the overhang achieves, because you can open these up, and because of this overhang of the deck here, which is outside of the lip of the hatch, you can have those open in the rain quite comfortably. Cooking, bathroom on that side has the same one, so that's really clever and really well thought out. So the boat we're on is a 2-cab version, so we've got the double up front and we've got the double on the starboard side aft. So what the 2-cabin offers is a bigger galley, so that whole block there from where the work surface finishes onwards is what you gain when you order the 2-cab version as opposed to the 3-cabin version. We've taken the opportunity to stick another fridge and freezer unit in here, so it's about a 70-75 litre unit, so you've got the fridge with storage and a nice clever bottle storage in there. Then you've got a tray that runs out here, and then a bit higher up you've got a freezer box as well. So it's a really nice thought out additional freezer unit. You've got a decent drawer at the top there. This is really useful as well. It's a really deep, I mean that fiddle is about as deep as my hand, so you can imagine what you can keep up there without why am I struggling with that? And then that's access to the ventilation for the fridge there. So everything from there onwards is your standard galley. So regardless of whether you order 2 or 3 cabs, this is your galley. You've got a couple of really nice sunken cupboards here. Again, deep fiddles, great for storing tins and coffee jars and God knows what else. And because they're sunken back, it gives you loads of extra work surface, and there's nothing quite like trying to make something and thinking, where on earth am I going to put the butter or the plates or whatever else whilst I'm plating up. So that extra deep galley is really, really nice, and front to back it's actually probably 2.5 feet to try and give you a bit of context of the size. You've got a sink and a half over here, really nice grab rail at the bottom of the companionway to get straight into. You've got a 135 litre top loading fridge with a front door on it as well. That's all one unit. It's a deep kind of L-shaped fridge, so whether you're trying to access the stuff at the bottom or the top, you've got access to that there. Really nice cupboard again with a nice inset deep fiddle top level cupboard, top level shelf on it. Drop down cupboard there. Huge cupboard down here. Yeah, that's fab. So you've got a 2 burner with an oven. You can, as an option, convert that into an oven with a grill. So if a grill's important, make sure you specify that. And then you've got access through into what is just a gigantic sail locker. So this is the height that the bed would normally be if you had chosen the 3rd cabin, and the bed starts where this piece of wood is here, where this access hatch is. You've then got access up through the cockpit locker, so it's a big old opening. So if this is where you want to keep your dinghy and things like that, you can lower them in from above, or you can come down and use this big access hatch here, which is about 2 foot by 2.5 foot high, so plenty big enough to be getting stuff through there. Access to the port side of the engine here, and importantly these, you can just see this rubber seal around here, and these catches, whether you're familiar with them or not, as you close them they clamp shut, so it clamps this rubber seal shut, so it keeps the engine noise down but also stops these panels vibrating when you get to particular engine revs and resonances. So it's a nice little touch that you wouldn't really notice that was a benefit until you notice that it's a benefit. Into the engine bay. So the standard engine on this is the 30 horsepower Yanmar. The option is the 40 horsepower. The 30 is twinned with the SD25 sail drive, and when you go up to the 40 horsepower you then jump up to the SD60 sail drive. The only notable difference is the servicing hours between them. The SD25 is every 100 hours once you've got past the initial inspection phase, and the SD60 is 250 hours. So if you are a high hours user, it's probably worth going up to the SD60 with the 40 horsepower just to have kinder service intervals. And then on the starboard side you have a seriously impressive aft cabin. So that, again, it's a 2 metre long bed, or 2 metres and 5 centimetres anyway. Really nice shelf, outboard. This cabin, whether you have one on the port side or not, takes up about 2/3, if not 3/4 of the central kind of island, central partition where the behind the engine bay. So this starboard cabin is always your slightly bigger cabin, even if you have the one on the other side. You have a fab wardrobe on the port side. You've got your 2 reading lights, which again, USB sockets, switchable to red if needed. You have loads of ventilation, so you've got this big vertical window here that opens into the cockpit, and you've got this big one above the standing area, which opens under the spray hood, so you can have that one open when you're when it's raining, assuming it isn't driving in too hard. Little drawer under here, again about 2 foot wide and 1 foot deep. Power socket. Really nice half cabin, and walking in there you've actually got a really good space to stand whilst you're getting dressed and undressed, and that bed is just huge, really huge. So other bits to point out, so regardless of what you do cabins wise, you've got this equal opening port on this side. Again, that would be above the standing space in the 3rd cabin if you had it. In this case it's another opening one in the galley. So actually in the galley, ignoring this one up here, you've got one straight above the cooker. You've got the one straight above the cooker in the coach roof, which you can have open when you're cooking. You've got 2 big opening outboard on port. You've got 2 big opening outboard on starboard that we dealt with earlier. You've got the 3 above the owner's cabin bed as well. And then you go into the heads, and this is the heads block moulding unit from the 410. So it's exactly the same unit, it just happens to be in the 360 rather than the 410. So you've got a huge shower, the fold down seat, wooden slatted floor with the pumped draining floor underneath it, these fab storage shelves in here for shampoos and various other things, and a screen door that comes across. Then you've got your wash basin with your cupboards above it, and yet another cupboard here which is also access to the holding tank. And that's a 54 litre holding tank, so that should be enough to look after you in port for a few days. And then you've got a full kind of domestic size loo as opposed to the little compact loos, and on this particular boat that's an electric flush as well. So the heads is, well, you can tell it's the heads from a 41 footer. It's fab, really fab. And I think that about covers it. So that's 18 minutes of the interior tour of the 360. I'm going to go and do the exterior tour in a little bit, so we'll post that as well. I hope you've enjoyed it. It might have prompted some questions, so if it has, get in touch. We're Inspiration Marine with the UK Hanse dealer. We've got this 360 down at our Hamble Point office after the boat show, so if you'd like to come and have a tour around it, come for a sail, you'd be more than welcome. Please get in touch.